I'm Justin Davis, and this is Drone Camps RC. Hey guys, welcome back to the Drone Camps channel. I'm Justin Davis. I've been flying FPV for years, and today we're gonna help you out with your first 5-inch racer. Should you build it or should you buy it? That's the age-old question in our community right now. Should I put together my own parts with the help of the community, pick out those best parts off of the best websites out there for FPV parts, and just go at it myself? Or should I put down $150 to $200 to even $300 for something like a PNP or a BNF? And what is the difference between PNP and BNF? Well, plug and play essentially means that you have to add your own receiver. It's pretty much ready to go and all soldered up for a PNP with the exception of a receiver. Now, if you're looking at something that says BNF, that is going to be bind and fly. So that means that it already has a receiver on there. When you make the purchase at checkout, you're going to pick which receiver you want that matches up with your radio. So FrSky, FlySky, Futaba, or Spectrum receivers. Now, what seems like only a year ago, you could go out to any race field in the nation or around the world and you could see really hot custom builds. And a lot of those guys that were building custom builds source a lot of their parts off of websites, and they had something really special, and a lot of those guys were winning races with those quads. Now something has flipped and changed a little bit because some of the companies have actually started paying attention to us at the field, what we like, and they're starting to put those components in something like a PNP or a bind and fly. So you're getting just as good components on some of the ones you can just outright buy and bind to your receiver and go out and fly as you are some of the custom builds. So in this video, I'm going to let you know whether that's actually true or not. Can we get the same performance out of something that we can just buy off a website versus that awesome guy's custom build out of the field? And we're going to take a look at this custom quad that I built this week. This is called the Drone Camp Switchblade. It's got a lot of custom gear on here from EMAX, HDLRC, and some other companies. So we're going to share some of those links down below with you. We're going to talk about your first custom build, but we're also going to talk about the top 3 favorite 5-inch drones for July in 2018. So let's go ahead and get started with the first of the drones, number 3 in the bunch. Now the first quad in this series is number 3, and this is the Photon 2 by Helifar. Helifar, if you don't know about this company, originally they used to be Frsky, that's the rumor on the street, and they became Helifar. And all of the Helifar components and everything on here is just eons better than the original Frsky brand. Frsky or Fury, however you want to say that, whatever your accent is in the world, you can say that either way. But this one has top spec components on here. We've got 2305 motors on here, 2400 kVs, and we have a Stretch X replaceable arm frame, 30 amp ESCs, the Holybro Cocoot F4s on here. That's the version 2 flight controller, and that's down bottom right here. You can see, if I zoom in real quick, I'll show you that real close up. Cocoot runs pretty good. It's very stable. It comes with a factory tune on it that's pretty good and reliable. It also has a beeper tucked in here over in the corner, so you put a little dab of hot glue right there, you can just hold that in place. And just above the flight controller is the VTX that's running 600 milliwatt, up to 600 milliwatt. So you can do 25, 200 milliwatt, and 600 milliwatt with Betaflight OSD. And that's the Atlo HV. It's called an Atlo HV 25 to 600 milliwatt transmitter. That's plenty of power. 600, you're going to go out into a large field with that one. If you're racing with multi-GP guys, you're going to do 25 milliwatt. But one of my favorite features of this particular quad is that flat top you're looking at right here. They also have 2 slots in the very top of it, so you can add a top mount battery or you can do the bottom mount. So either way you want to go, you got plenty of room down here to put the strap through, or you can do it up here. And they actually have 2 slots up top, so if you wanted to move these antennas further back, you could also get some type of TPU camera mount up here, or add your GoPro on the top of this quad. So a lot of quads lately are having a flat top on it with 4 screws on the top, so it's a quick release top and you can get to your flight controller or your VTX to make any type of changes. Now, one bummer about this particular quad is that it's a little bit hard to see the VTX underneath here. You don't have an LED on this one on the bottom there, but you do have smart audio on this one. So you could actually go into smart audio, set that up, and change your channels and bands inside hide your radio on your goggle screen. So that's also a really nice feature of this quad. And also another reason why I really like that VTX is the fact that it does have an MMCX style connector in the very back here. So it's not that little tiny sort of UFL connector. It's actually the larger big brother to that. And that's a lot easier and better to deal with. The UFL connectors kind of snap off sometimes, and they're extremely hard to get back on once they wear out. So these big daddies right here, the MMCX connectors, that's just going to pop off right there just like that, and it does take a little bit of force to pop that off. So it's actually quite a sturdy transmitter connector for your antenna. And while not everything is perfect about this quad, one little sort of con that I have about this quad is the fact that they did mount this on the side. They ran the MMCX antenna wire under here, and it just comes up through the bottom right there. That's probably one of my pet peeves about this entire design, but the frame itself is pretty much top spec frame. I love the way this looks, and everything on here is very easy to get to. The ESCs are out on the arms, and that makes the stack really short in here, so it does make it sort of that low profile lowrider look if you like that about your quad. But this one's a pretty good value at $238 bind and fly with an FrSky receiver, or $237 plug and play. So either way you go with this particular quad, I had a ton of fun with it. It rips on 4S 1300. You can fly a 1500 to get a little longer flight time, but I'll try to put some links down to some props below, because right now what I'm flying is a lot of the Cyclone props, and I'll try to find a link for these guys for you. They're the 5046 props, and these things kick ass. Also, the Azure props are doing really good for me. They draw a little more power from your battery because they do have a wider cord, and they have that sort of funky shape right there. But this is also a really nice flying prop. But let's move on to number 2 out of 3, the Batman 220. So now you're looking at number 2 out of my top 3 favorite quads. This is the HGLRC Batman 220. This has an Airbus F4 flight controller on here and 60 amp ESCs. So if you're looking for a beast quad, I ran this quad up to 6S. I got an email from HGLRC saying not to run it on 6S, that the motors couldn't handle it, but I did it anyway for you guys, and it survived that test. I didn't push it super high end on the throttle, but I also ran it on 5S, and it did pretty good on 5S. I did start to see some wobble in the flight controller on 5S, so you're going to have 2 different profiles inside Betaflight for this if you decide to fly it on 4 and 5S. I wouldn't recommend doing 6 like I did, but the ESCs, they're 60 amps, so they will handle 6S. You might just have to upgrade the motors to something like the Brother Hobby motors, but this particular quad is the most expensive out of the 5-inch ones I'm going to show you today on 4S. This one runs in at $299, which is not too bad for how much quad you get here. If you're looking for a quad that's just a total beast, this guy has proven itself to be a beast out in the field, and for freestyle or racing, this one is gonna rip balls. It's a really nice quad, but 200 millimeter carbon frame with 4 millimeter arms. They're replaceable on there, so you can get new arms for it. They also have really nice flat recessed hardware on the top where the bolts go through, so it's more of a custom style frame. It's a very nice design that looks like they thought about this when they built it. It's not just kind of slammed together, and it doesn't look like an exact clone of anything else out there, which is also kind of nice. But on this one, you do have the latest and greatest Betaflight, and you have Betaflight OSD, which a lot of us want. And HGLRC, not only do they make flight controllers, ESCs, and now motors, and they also make transmitters. They make a really nice transmitter. The GTX 585 that's on this one is super awesome. It has pit mode on there, so you can start up your quad without taking everybody else out in the field. That's a really nice feature. And then you can switch it onto the high power mode. You can go all the way up to 600 milliwatt, but it will actually do 25, 100, 200, 400, and 600 milliwatt switchable. So it does have a little LED display on there, and you can hold it down and switch between the powers, which is really nice. And that has a huge voltage range on that VTX. It actually has from 7 to 26 volts, so plenty of range on that one. And also it includes that MMCX style antenna connector, which is great. That's the one that's bomb proof. It's not coming off there. And another nice feature of this quad is the XJB ELF camera that comes along along with it. HDLRC actually makes that camera. That's their in-house camera, and it has a resolution of 600 TVL, but it has a really nice bright image quality. As you can see here, it has a 2.3 millimeter lens and 120 degree field of view. But the 2.3 millimeter lens is super nice, and that's what a lot of the guys in the community fly. The 2.1 lens is not quite as popular, and it does say it's running PAL, but you can switch that up in Betaflight to NTSC, where you can do automatic switching inside Betaflight. So no big deal when it comes to NTSC or PAL in my experience with goggles, so don't worry about that too much. But the ELPH camera also has a range of 5 to 36 volts, so plenty of range. You're probably not going to fry that particular camera. But overall, the HDLRC Batman 220 was definitely a top performer this year. So far this summer, the Batman 220 is like seriously ruling the pool, especially with the 60 amp ESCs. This one is just like an absolute ripper and a beast. I absolutely love this quad, and that Airbus F4 flies really, really good. So that's definitely number 2 out of my 3. Now, my number 1 pick for the summer of 2018 so far is the EMAX HAWK 5. That quad did so well out there. I flew it so hard when I was on my cross-country trip that I broke parts, and I had to get back with EMAX and get some replaceable arms. It does have replaceable arms on this quad, but I had so much fun with it that I was trying Matty flips over top of this huge bungee structure, and it was just an amazing flying quad. Like, a lot of people say that this quad, it feels like you're flying a simulator when you fly this quad because it's so well tuned. And one of the reasons is that it has the Magnum F4 on there. The Magnum F4 flight controller is a huge favorite in the community right now. A lot of people are flying that. It has 30 amp ESCs, which will handle a 4S 1300 or a 1500. You don't want to really run this one 5S because this one's specifically made to run 4S 1300s. And also, if you notice, the top of this quad is also flat, like the Helifar Futon 2. It has a spot for a GoPro up top. You could put a top mount battery or a bottom mount battery on it as well. And you also get a 600 TVL camera on there, and that is also a huge crowd favorite. That's the Foxeer Aero Micro version 2, and that one's a CCD camera, so that one has a really, really nice image quality. Some of the best cameras out there right now are made by Foxeer and Runcam, and lately I've been flying a lot of Foxeer stuff. I'm really, really enjoying Foxeer Predator 2. I just got one of those in the mail. I'm going to show you guys that in a couple days on the channel. But the EMAX HAWK 5, it's just mind-blowing because that quad is so solid out of the box. And I knew that EMAX was going to make a revision of their Nighthawk, which this is kind of their pro version of that. This is kind of like not your daddy's Nighthawk. If you've been around the hobby for a while, you know that the Nighthawk was originally like the sort of the cheap guy's quadcopter. But now the HAWK 5 has kind of changed the game with that, especially 249. This thing has 5-star ratings all over the place. So if I was going to spend my money on a 5-inch quad that I didn't have to build, just bind it up to my radio and go out and actually do a race, or just learn how to do flips and rolls and learn how to fly acro for the first time, I wish this quad would have been around 4 years ago when I first started flying FPV race quads, because this is an amazing progression to where we are now. A very, very, very well tuned quad, and it was actually tuned by the guys over at EMAX who are professional racers. So this has a huge advantage over some of the other bind and fly quads out there. The HDLRC Batman 220 was also tuned in China by their top racers, and the Futon 2, as far as I know, came with a tune on it as well. So all 3 of these quads are really top spec and fly extremely well. And I've flown a lot of crappy quads, and I've flown a lot of really, really nice quads out of the box. But these are my top 3 for now, guys. And I think if you decide to go for one, people have been asking me, oh man, which one should I buy? Should I buy the Batman 220 or should I buy the HAWK 5? Well, if you want a huge beast, buy the Batman 220. If you want the best flying overall and probably the easiest to use, also one of the lightest in this group, that's going to be the HAWK 5. The HAWK 5 has all EMAX gear on there, and the EMAX motors are extremely reliable. The LS2206's light specs that are on the HAWK 5, they sing and purr with those ESCs, so a very nice sounding motor. I would suggest, again, flying the Cyclones over the EMAX Avon props They're okay, but they're not my favorite. I demoed the quad actually with the Avons, and they did fine, but eventually I switched them out to the Cyclone 5040s, and now I'm running the Cyclone 5046s. So you can look those up on Google, and you can have a really nice, smooth flying quad. Like a nice prop on a quad will actually change you having to sometimes have to PID tune it too much, so you won't have to do a lot of tuning to it. So stick a nice prop on there. It's like a nice wheel on a race car. If you have really crappy square tires, it's going to drive like it has square tires. So same thing with quads. Now we're going to talk about a company that is going to be my #1 choice for any of you guys who want to fly a 6S 5-inch. That is going to be Catalyst Machine Works. If you go to their website, catalystmachineworks.com, you're going to see 3 quads that they offer right now, and right now you're looking at the America. I have the Stretch X version with replaceable arms. I've got 2 capacitors running out front. I have a really nice run cam in there, and almost indestructible top end on this quad. This is all TPU, and I have Raceflight running on this quad, which is different than Betaflight. If you're a new guy, Raceflight is actually pretty easy to figure out and get set up, because it does walk you through some prompts in setting this quad up with your sticks to get your radio working correctly. And you won't be able to fly this quad until it puts you through all those prompts and you get this completely set up. It's almost impossible to mess up in Raceflight, but you can get some help on the forums. So if you're new to it and you don't understand Raceflight, you might want to look into the manuals on Raceflight and make sure that everything is correct, that everything is spinning the right direction before you bind it up and go fly it. But if you're flying 6S for the first time, obviously this isn't your first 5-inch, so this is definitely not a beginner quad. This is something that's going to be intermediate to a pro quad, extremely fast. You're going to get over 100 miles an hour with this quad. When I reviewed this quad maybe 2 months ago on the channel, it's like one of those quads that will blow your mind, and other people standing next to you are just blown away by the performance of it, how fast it was. There was a race happening the day I flew this, and a lot of the guys were kind of awestruck at how fast I was going across the field in my speed runs. Now they also have a new version of it. It's a bind and fly version. It is a $499 quad, so it is the most expensive that I've selected out of this bunch in this video today. If money is not an object and you just want the quad that rips the most at the field, this one is 6S capable. This one is called the Razorback, and it has a little fin on the top of it. Just going to show you a picture here on the screen. It's a pretty badass looking quad. The fin on the top is for turtle mode, so if you flip over, you just have a little more height off the top of the quad to keep the props out of the grass. If you do flip over in grass, turtle mode is not really suggested. If you flip over somewhere where the quad has a little bit of space in between the ground and the props, that's always better, because you can burn out a motor or ESC using turtle mode. So just keep that in mind. If you flip that switch, make sure you're on a pretty flat ground when you're using turtle mode. But they have new motors on this one. It's called the Sendit 2206 1800 kVs, and those are super low kV. They are Catalyst branded, and look at this quad from the side. This thing is insane. So the America quad, in my opinion, guys, is definitely probably one of the most awesome quads you can buy out there off the internet right now. It is more pricey than the other ones out there, but this guy, I've talked to him for a long time, and I know one thing about him. He does not just keep the same old gear all the time. If you look on his website, he's constantly adding the latest and greatest stuff on these quads. So the America that you buy this week will not be the America that you buy 2 weeks from now. Each week he's getting in different and newer and all the latest and greatest components. So Catalyst Machine Works is definitely going to be a website that you should check out, because their bottom end quad starts out about $300. That's the more massive droner 3-inch bind and fly quad. Also a crowd favorite is the massive droner 2.5. So my sweet spot seems to be for a brushless micro 2.5. So definitely check out his massive droner. Pretty cool name on that quad. But Catalyst Machine Works, definitely a thumbs up from me. So now we're nearing the end of the video, guys, and a lot of my videos are geared at the new guys to help you guys out and decide what to get, because reviews are really, really important out there, and it's important that people be honest about the reviews, because if something's crap and it sucks, you don't want to pass that on to the next guy. People are going to know if you're full of it or not, and I go out and fly these things myself, and you guys watch the video. The videos are proof that they're actually a decent quad or not. a lot of guys can tell whether a quad is tuned or not, and it's pretty easy to hear it out of the field too. When you first put a quad up, if it has a lot of sort of noise coming from it, you know that it has something odd going on with the flight controller and the way that the accelerometers bounce out in the PIDs. So very important that the quad flies nice out of the box. That was a huge requirement for this video. My top 3 quads also had to have top spec components on it as compared to something like this that I would custom build. And this is from Torque FPV. This is their frame. I have Cyclone 5040 props on here. I have some EMAX RS2206, and I have all HGLRC gear in here. So basically all the same gear inside this quad that I custom built is in the Batman 220. And I'm running the same flight controller on this one. That's the Airbus F4 with the 60 amp ESCs down there. They're 32-bit. So build it or buy it. And that's the biggest thing right now. Some of the top spec components out there that builders are using are from these companies. And now these companies offer quads, which is just amazing to me that you can buy something like the Batman 220 and take it out and rip. Because a year ago, that would have been the custom quad at the field, and HGLRC has been in it for a long time, for years and years. Started out making flight controllers, and then they started making ESCs, motors. Now they make their own cameras. Now they make their own 5-inch quad. So they've gone through the whole progression of listening to the community, which is really important when you're picking out gear. But the answer to the question, build it or buy it, is all depends on you as well. It depends on your soldering skills. If you have already built, say, a micro brushless or a 3-inch quad, if you're stepping up to get some components for building a 5-inch, I'll try to put a list for those down below. Some of my top picks for flight controllers and ESC combos. If you guys want to build a beast, I'll put a list down there for that. If you want to build an average flyer, and I'll try to put a build down there for that too as well. Something that won't cost quite as much, like a budget list for you guys. But as far as build it or buy it goes, it's a pretty obvious choice that you can buy one right now that has top specs on it with 60 amp ESCs and an incredible camera on there, something like a Runcam Micro or any other top shelf camera, flight controller, VTX, motors, all that good stuff is being thrown at these bind and flies these days. So the game has changed in the FPV community, and now you can just go on the website and buy something that will be just as good as the guy next to you running a custom rig. So we're getting to that point, guys, and the builds are taking less and less all the time. I built this one this morning by lunchtime. So if you have a soldering iron, just get to work in the morning on your parts, and by the afternoon you can have a quad in 2018. But thanks again for watching this, guys. If you want to click the links below and check out some of the stuff that I recommend, you can do that. And please do subscribe on the channel, because I'm going to keep bringing you the most current information that I possibly can on the hobby. I appreciate all your help on Patreon too, and just want to say thanks to everybody that's helping me with that. Hopefully you guys have a good weekend. I'm Justin Davis, guys. Take care. Fly hard, fly fast. I'll see you on the next one.